Thank you for subscribing and welcome to wonderful Windsor Castle, the place Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II calls home. Indeed, where all of our kings and queens of over 900 years have called home. It is the oldest and longest inhabited castle in the world, covering 52,609 square metres, has over 1,000 rooms and over 1 million visitors a year. It's been a medieval castle, a prison, a headquarters, a safe haven, a palace, a royal court, a centre for entertainment, and a home. So, how did it get there? Following the Norman victory at the Battle of Hastings in 1066, we had our first Norman king, and they loved to build castles. The first castles they built took just 2 weeks. Incredible! So, to set out their dominance, the Normans built castles, possibly up to 1,000 in the medieval era, usually in a motte and bailey design, consisting of a keep on top of a mound or hill, the motte, with a courtyard and surrounding wall, the bailey. Windsor was one of these castles, part of a protective ring of 9 surrounding London, the capital city. Windsor quickly became a popular castle due to the nearby Windsor Great Park, with its abundance of game and deer. In fact, since the reign of King Henry I between 1100 and 1135, the castle has been lived in by every one of our monarchs. Originally, the castle was a wooden structure, but over time was replaced with stone. And the castle, though not featuring in many wars, has seen its share of action. It survived the Barons' Revolt during the time of King John, just before the signing of the Magna Carta in 1215, in nearby Runnymede, for one example. The Magna Carta is a cornerstone of Western politics and is still used around the world today. Important laws like just because you're king and in charge of the country doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want. I realise some of you may not know who King John is, by the way. But what if I told you he's the bad king in Robin Hood? Ah, yeah. Does it all make sense now? Many of our monarchs have added to, developed and renovated Windsor Castle to leave the spectacular complex of buildings, grounds and rooms we enjoy today. St George's Chapel, built during the 14th century, is a beautiful building, worth going to see purely for the ceiling. With its stunning architecture and design, it was labelled to be one of the supreme achievements of English perpendicular Gothic design. St George's Chapel is also a burial site, like many other churches and cathedrals, and some of our most famous monarchs are buried there, including Henry VIII, Charles I, George III, 4th, 5th and 6th, who was Queen Elizabeth II's father, as well as the Queen's mother, Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon, and many, many more. But perhaps on a cheerier note, it's played host to royal weddings. In fact, in 2018, there were 2 royal weddings at St George's Chapel. That of Princess Eugenie and Jack Brooksbank, and also, of course, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, who drew in thousands from all around the world to celebrate their beautiful union. A tour of Queen Mary's dollhouse is also a must, built between 1921 and 1924 by over 1,500 artists and craftsmen. The house shows the upstairs-downstairs life. It has working lights, running hot and cold water, a working toilet, and a stocked wine cellar. There are approximately 150 staff residing in the castle. Their job? Upholding this prestigious fortress and the family that call it home. Of course, there are the librarians who look after the 300,000 books, chefs in the oldest kitchen in the country, cleaners, historians, and more. But there are some quirkier professions working there too. The castle is home to a resident fendersmith, whose family have maintained the castle's 300 fireplaces for generations. It also has a resident horologist, who looks after the 379 timepieces within the castle walls. Did you know the Windsor Castle estate, including Windsor Great Park, has over 450 clocks? When British summertime begins, it takes the Queen's clockmaker 16 hours to move every clock forward by 1 hour. At the end of British summertime, it takes him 18 hours to adjust them back 1 hour. That's because he actually has to move all of them forward 11 hours. On the 20th of November 1992, tragedy struck as a fire broke out, destroying 115 rooms throughout the castle, including 9 of the state apartments. A spotlight ignited a curtain, and as the fire spread to the altar, within just minutes the fire was unstoppable. Luckily, the fire started far from the majority of the art collection, and an evacuation was quickly underway, whilst 225 firemen from 7 counties were fighting the blaze. The fire was put out after 15 hours. Much of the affected area was restored to its former glory, looking as it had the day before the fire started. And the works were completed 5 years to the day after the fire started on 20th of November 1997. When the question came of who would pay the bill, in order to not upset British taxpayers, the royal family opened Buckingham Palace, with proceeds going to the restoration work. And after this event, the Queen began paying council tax on all of her properties, and still does to this day. So of course, all this is very interesting, but what's it all worth if the Queen isn't there when you visit? Well, you can check upon your arrival. Look to the flying flag. There will be one of 2 flags on the pole, either the Union flag, commonly called the Union Jack, or the Royal Standard. The Royal Standard is red, blue, and yellow, with 4 emblems showing the ancient kingdoms of England, Northern Ireland, and Scotland, and England again. Sorry, Wales. Take it up with the Queen, not me. Then there is the Union flag. This is red, blue, and white, with the flags of England, Scotland, and Northern Ireland intertwined. Yes. Sorry again, Wales. Take that one up with Parliament, not me. If you see the Royal Standard flying, it means the Queen is in residence, so you will be sharing the castle with Her Majesty. Don't just stay within the castle walls on your visit though. The town of Windsor has loads to offer you too, with places like the Long Walk or perhaps the shortest street in England. Queen Charlotte Street can be found next to the Crooked House of Windsor and is under 52 feet. The Crooked House of Windsor was built in the 1600s and either due to the poor quality of untreated oak or because it became detached from the Guildhall, it now has a heavy slant. It is said that there are underground passageways linking the house to the castle. Supposedly, they were used by Charles II and his mistress, the actress Nell Gwynn. Then next door, take a peek at the Guildhall. This is where Prince Charles married Camilla Parker Bowles in 2005 at the registry office in order to appeal to the sensibilities of us common folk before a rather fancy soiree at St George's Chapel and St George's Hall, both of which are available to visit on your tour to the castle. My favourite fact, though, is about the pillars in front of the Guildhall. Sir Christopher Wren was told to rebuild the Guildhall, and the councillors insisted that he needed pillars to support the weight of the building. The architect would not be told what to do, however, and in protest erected 4 pillars which are just a few inches too short, leaving a small gap at the top, proving his exceptional ability. The Guildhall still stands proudly on the High Street. Why not visit one of the most famous schools in the world, the nearby Eton College? The all-boys school is 579 years old, dating to 1441 and commissioned by Henry VI. Today it costs over £40,000 a year to attend, but originally it was built so that poorer boys could learn for free. The boys do still live there 7 days a week, returning home for holidays, and many of those young men are household names. Prince William, the future King of England, and his brother Harry both attended Eton, as did the current Prime Minister Alexander Boris de Pfeffel Johnson, or just Boris for short. In fact, 20 Prime Ministers have attended, people such as David Cameron, Pitt the Elder, and the Duke of Wellington. Did you know it is quoted that Wellington once said, "The Battle of Waterloo was won on the playing fields of Eton," attributing the British soldiers' supremacy to the skills learnt in sport. And sport is very important at Eton. They have their very own games that aren't played anywhere else in the world, such as Eton Fives and the Eton Wall game. Eton also wrote down the very first rules of football in 1815, and the club, the Old Etonians, played in the first versions of the FA Cup. So that's Windsor Castle and the surrounding areas in a nutshell. I hope you've enjoyed discovering the magnificent castles, its centuries of history, and the weird and wonderful stories it holds inside. Windsor has so much more to offer, and as always, a visit to the magnificent town and castle is a personal recommendation of mine. Next time, join me on tour as we visit many more of the beautiful locations the UK has to offer. Goodbye.